before my computer dies, so I can pull up a video. Let's talk about it real quick. If you
I
feel
mean,
it.
well, what's the question?
Where's the Charleston from?
The Charleston is from Guinea.
Yeah, okay, I'm not wrong. I said it right. Thank
Yeah,
God.
from Guinea. I mean, there are a number of dances throughout West Africa that have um, similar movements that could be related to the Charleston.
Mhm.
The reason, and my dear friend, who I think it was my friend Alma Ray, who turned me on to that, or it might have been somebody else. I think it was Alma, but she got me looking at that. And the reason I go with Guinea is because there's a dance in Guinea called the Yankee. And if my stuff was working, I could pull everything up and even the connectors. But the reason I go with Yankee and Guinea, because a lot of the people that were taken through forced migration and enslaved in America were in the Charleston area of South Carolina. South Carolina had the largest slave port during that time in the 1700s, and many of those people were from Guinea. So, as I've said many times, you don't leave your culture behind. Culture stays with you.
Mhm.
So when Tariq asked his what I thought was an ignorant question, but when he asked, how would people in America see it? I'm like, they're not from Charleston. Like Africans were brought to Charleston. And even if you do say or agree that Africans were in America before the slave trade, that's fine. People from Guinea were still enslaved and took into South Carolina.
Right.
And they took their dances with them. Anybody, you take your cultural practices with you wherever you go. And so that's why I go with Yankee, because we know through the journals that that's where mass people were taken from Guinea. And that's where that dance showed up and subsequently becomes known as the Charleston because of Reverend Daniel Jenkins' orphanage band when they were in New York City. And that's documented by Willie the Lion Smith in his book, was it The Music Man? I think it's The Music Man.
Go.
That's over there. I ain't going over there. But Willie the Lion Smith, even he says that in his book, like document, like it was those kids from Charleston who were doing this dance, and they didn't know the name of it, but that's how the dance got the name Charleston. Um, so yeah, that's its origins. Um, coming
And
to
then would you say here I'm gonna pull it. So would you say that's like what did from the Charleston? So we talk about the Guinea tribe, Charleston. What did that foundation morph into as far as the different dance styles or different dance moves that from that movement?
the Charleston,
Yeah.
oh everything,
Okay. All right. Let's
everything.
talk
I
about
mean,
it. What are the dances that like kind of came from
everything
that?
specifically. I mean, specifically. So the movement is once the movement is out there, it's going to be influential in some way,
Right.
right? Even if it's just a minute thing, it's going to be
Mhm.
influential in some way. But the Charleston was like a hit. And so first started really being noticed as the Charleston in like by 1905, you're starting to see articles and things pop up about this dance.
Right.
What really put it on the map in terms of like sort of mainstream thinking was when it appeared in Shuffle Along, the Broadway show Shuffle Along in 1921. And but it showed up, it continued to show up in other dances. So the popularity of that dance bled into a partner dance called the Texas Tommy.
Okay.
And the movement of the Charleston would show up inside inside the Texas Tommy. You can see footage of this in the 1929 short film called After Seven, and that's seven with a B, Seben, which stars Shorty George. And you can see them doing, I think it's three couples. You see them doing the Charleston within it. That is what started to shift what became known as the Lindy Hop. So that's part of what took Texas Tommy into becoming the Lindy Hop, is when they started adding these other steps into it. But the popularity of that steps, you had various ways of doing it. There's a Kansas City Charleston that's more straight leg. There was a Flappers Charleston, which was done by the young girls, that had a more, I mean, the Charleston was an up and down movement, but the Flappers Charleston was more on, they were all on the ball of your foot, but the Flappers Charleston brought the heel closer to the buttock, sort of on the side of the body. That was a Flappers Charleston, and this was more, again, this was the younger people. To getting your basic Charleston, there's a flat-footed Charleston. There were various ways of doing it. There was, when the regular Charleston was all the rage outside of the Black community, the kids in Harlem created the jump Charleston to make it look different. You had the Scarecrow Charleston, the Precision Charleston, the Round the World Charleston, the Flying Charleston, Drop Charleston. It's so many Charlestons, it's insane.
It sounds like it.
Right. And so because you keep getting these variations, some of that movement shows up in other dances that are being created as well. The biggest connection to the next dance wouldn't be until the mashed potatoes in 1960, which is basically the Charleston.
Okay.
Yes, the Charleston has done more. The Charleston progresses back and forth, while the mashed potato is lateral.
Right.
And you know, that's Charleston footwork is mixed into the James Brown.
Yes.
Which is what, like, there's when you take the Charleston and you make it flat, and you could mix it with what was called the corkscrew back then. So James Brown was born in 1933. By the time he's, you know, what is that, 8, 9, 10, whatever. In 1940, the Applejack is huge. And so there's variations to the Applejack, and one of them is going up on one leg and gliding across the floor like James did.
My computer just died, and I was like trying to pull up the Sam and Dave concert where like they're dancing and then they're doing like what you're talking about, picking up one foot and kind of shuffling from the side to side.
Yeah. So that was part of the Applejack in 1940. And James just mixed that with the slop, with the and with the mashed potato, and he comes up with the James Brown. He just mixing a bunch of dances together.
Yes.
James was also heavily influenced by tap dancing, which where his footwork inspiration came from. He wasn't good at tap, but
but
if he put on tap shoes, it's just noise. But
it's just the feeling, and what he was responding to the music he was creating was just what made it, you know.
And so, you get that. Then into hip hop, you get Super Lover C and Casanova Rudd, who are inspired by James Brown, and they create the dance "Do to James," which is the hip hop version. You get Kid and Play Kickstep, which, to my understanding, was actually inspired by Hi Hat, Nadine Ruffin, who does like the voice now. She was their dancer back then. My understanding is that she came up with that for them.
Okay.
It was originally called the Funky Charleston, and they rebranded it as the Kid and Play Kickstep. When you look at the Rev Up and Light Feet, that's Charleston again. So there's a few other dances. It just keeps.
That's dope. See, and this is where
of course, like I said, the inspiration that you'll see with like that would go into top rocking, for example, and not necessarily an Indian step, but like some of the ways that, because you're talking about young dancers who are influenced by James and copying James, but not realizing they're actually copying a dance that James was copying.
Yeah, it's kind of through subconscious, through like just watching and picking it up
Right.
without like, yeah.
Right. So then it just keeps the continuation going.
Right. That's, I mean, even like when you watch Michael Jackson, who's inspired by James Brown, and like he's kind of doing Charleston, but instead of like his feet crossed, he's going out and kind of like moving out, with that little boom, boom, boom.
Well,
And
Michael did a lot of camel walks.
okay, that's
And,
another move. That's another move.
yeah, and Michael also did the drop Charleston. Michael's really interesting because you got to really watch the micro timing in his movement and the nuance and how he blended dances. Because to the day he died, he still did a wrist twirl from Locket. But if you
Right.
don't know what you're
Yeah.
looking for, you might not see. He does it that fast. It'll just be one
Right.
movement and then all this other stuff. So he still blended a lot of stuff.
Yo,